when you look at infrastructure, there's three things that are very important. One is that all conversations about infrastructure need to look at the long term. So if you look at it, one year that is very often talked about is, what is it going to look like in 2050 and what does infrastructure need to be? It's an interesting data point because in 2050, India's economy is going to be about the size of the US and China put together. That's the rate at which we're growing, and that's where we're going to be. The second thing that's important is that as economies grow and become richer, they also become more urban. So if you track the GDP per capita on the x-axis and you look at the percentage urbanization on the y-axis, you'll find that the richest economies are also the most urban. Unsurprisingly, you have the US, Japan, and Germany on the top right, and you've got India at the bottom left, amongst other economies that are emerging and not yet rich. And within India, for instance, you'll find again that the extent of urbanization is highest in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra and Gujarat. But at the bottom left you have Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, where the level of urbanization as well as the GDP per capita is the lowest. As the economy grows, you're going to have higher levels of urbanization. Just to give you a sense of it, we currently have something just over about 60% population is going to be urban by 2020. That will grow to 75% in 2035 and to 80% in 2045. So basically what's going to happen is that the contribution of cities to the GDP is going to keep growing up. So what's going to happen in practical terms is that over the next 30 years, we're going to have about 400 million people will be added to the cities, right? 400 million in the next 30 years. By the way, the last 400 million that got added took 60 years to add. So if you think our cities look quite crowded at the moment, well, they're going to become a lot more crowded, and they're going to become a lot more crowded a lot faster as well. That actually means that infrastructure becomes especially important for India as it becomes richer and as the economy grows. Third is, more infrastructure means more investment. So the current investment that we have in India is about just over $100 billion in 2018. That should have been the required investment of about 200 billion. So we were only about half of where we needed to be. Now you compare that $100 million in 2018. By 2030, it needs to be 30 times that. By 2040, it needs to be 60 times that. And by 2050, it needs to be 100 times that, right? So that's the level of investment that's needed to get the infrastructure to the point where it needs to be. In practical terms, if you take this simplest example, it means, as infrastructure evolves, it grows from unpaved roads to tar roads and then becomes highways and then becomes smart highways. And the same thing needs to apply to all aspects of infrastructure. So it needs to apply to rail, right? So rail starts with being the steam locomotives and then becomes high-speed trains and then becomes, the hyperloops. Power starts with, electric batteries and then coal plants and then solar plants and then, it's just more advanced, environment friendly. And similarly, communications goes from, the telephone to the internet, the mobile, the 5G and so on. So that's the story of infrastructure. Three things. Number one, we need to think long term. Number two, growth comes along with urbanization. And number three, along with urbanization, there is much more investment that's needed.